That little air compressor is loud as crap. But I need some air to blow this thing out. It's been a while since I took this bar off. I have a milling chain on here. Pretty much, I mean, it's probably 3/4 of the way gone. So I'm probably gonna put a new one on here after I order one, because y'all know me, we still got a whole lot of milling to do. And I have a new plan. I hadn't thought it all the way out yet, but before I start on this new plan, I really want to go around and cut up a lot of stuff that I have laying around. I have trees laying everywhere. I really need to cut a whole lot of this stuff up, stack it somewhere. I pretty much finished the generator shed, so now I want to take a little bit of time to go around and just clean up a bunch of stuff I have laying around, a bunch of messes I've made while working on that. So in between projects, it's good to kind of go clean things up, move wood around, get it nice to look at again before we start a new project and start making a bunch of mess again. This is my 391, MS 391, that I've used 99% for milling, and I was thinking I'd put a cross-cutting chain on here and play with the 391, just bucking some logs and cleaning up some stuff. So I figured this is a good time to play with the 32-inch bar on here and do some cross-cutting instead of milling. Also, with the saw, I've always ran at high RPMs, just milling pretty much wide open. So I'd like to run it some, a little lower RPMs and higher up and downs, and, you know, give the saw a little bit of a different action, run it differently, and see how it does, really. Just play around with it. And get a bunch of that dust out of there, sawdust. Clean this thing up real good. Alright, we got that all blown out. Saw off. Chain off. dusty. All right, now we're gonna take this cover off of here. Oh man, I think put it over here. Air compressor is a chainsaw owner's best friend. Yeah, why is that so tight? Oh, that's insane. Wow, I do not know why that's so tight. Oh, that was really locked in there. What the heck? I guess them things got hot or something. Alrighty. Let it go. Alright, blow that filter off. Get that all cleaned up. Thing had a lot of dust in it. Do this every time you sharpen your saw or change a chain with the air compressor. You keep your saws dang near like new. I want to wear eye protection when you're doing it. Or you'll end up with some stuff in your eyes. All right. Blow that rail out. We're ready for a new chain. Blow all this off again. All right, this is 38050, 105 drives, brand spanking new. It's fun when they get tangled up. these longer bars, it definitely it's a lifesaver having it in a vise. Alright, we'll probably need to back this off some. Adjuster in that hole there. I need to back that off quite a bit. There we go. We on there. Just got to make sure that adjuster is sticking through that hole there. You can actually tighten it up a little bit. About right, maybe a little tiny bit more. We'll start with that. Oh yeah, grease this tip. Ugh. Add some grease. Try not to put this thing as tight this time. That was crazy. We on there. Loosen that one back up, put it back through. There we go. We're ready to do some cutting now. We just got to fill this thing up. right. $3.91 is ready to cut. Where to even start? I have dropped so many trees. A couple I need to keep, but stuff like this laying around, just turn this into firewood, these shorter pieces for sure. Got this tree over here, kind of in the driveway part. You can see I cut that one up, but I need to cut this up. I think I'm gonna start with this one. I need to actually get up in here and cut that up, all up in them freaking bushes. Goodness gracious. I just have stuff laying everywhere. I just need to go around and just start cutting some of this stuff up. Over here, I got some logs too. Got a bunch of this stuff I'm not going to be using. I need to cut this up. I put the sawmill sled on that, but I'm not going to mill it. It's just too messed up, so I need to cut that up. Pretty much stuff everywhere. Not that I'm going to make it perfect or anything. And I need to cut this stuff up and move it, because I think this might be where the next project is gonna be. And this big old tree down here is unmillable, not good for anything. I need to cut that thing up. I need to run a smaller chainsaw through some of this stuff and kind of get it in the pile over here. I still don't know about the animal cage. I know I 100% have to have a dog cage built, and I want it nice and comfortable. That way if I leave for a day or overnight or a couple days or something, I have them secure, something big enough for them to walk around in, move around in, have a spot for their food, like some beds. I was thinking that I wanted to do the dog cage and the chicken cage in the same building, just have them separated, maybe by a wall. And then I've heard people talk about in the comments mites and just stuff saying that it might not be a good idea to do that. So I'm still debating on what to do with that. I was thinking this is a good spot right here for the dog cage. If I come over here and stand kind of where, good job Aurora. If I come over here and stand where I want the dog cage, is right near the shop cabin build here. So once I get that done, you'll be able to sit on the porch and the dog cage will be here. I was thinking the dog cage should be like 5 by 10 maybe. I think that would be plenty of room. 5 by 10, and then make it 2 5 by 5 cages. I think 5 by 5 is a pretty good amount of room for a bed, food bowl, and still have room to roam around. They have to pee or poop. I think it's still enough room for that in there, hopefully. I don't know, I'm really speaking my thoughts to actually get ideas, advice, comments on it. So feel free to do that in the comments. I built the dog cage and a chicken coop together in the same building. I was thinking about doing like a 10 by 10, and then have a 14 by 14 roof over it with a 2-foot overhang all the way around. That would prevent rain from getting in. And I was thinking of cutting that in half, so I would have a 5 by 10 split in the middle with wire or fence. That way the dogs can still see each other and, you know, touch noses or whatever. But a 5 by 10 separated by a fence divider so they can still communicate and see each other, but be in separate cages. And then I was thinking a wooden wall separating the dog cage from the chicken cage in the back, and then just have wire around the cage to keep them in, but possibly a wooden wall in the middle to separate the 5 by 10 and 5 by 10. So the chickens would actually have a 5 by 10 open cage. And of course I'd let them out, you know, when I'm home. Of course I'd let them out to roam and eat and everything, and just lock them up at night. Pretty much the same with the dogs. They'll be out during the day, and then at night either I'll lock them both up or just have one out at a time, because they kind of like to go on adventures in the morning too while I'm sleeping. I'll wake up and they'll be gone. When I only have one of them out, they stay home, they stay with me. One will stay with me and one will be in the cage. And then in the morning when I wake up, the one that stayed out at night, lock that one up, let the other one out, whatever, or let them both out, whatever. I mean, it's always different. I'm not like super strict on it, but I'm just talking really. But I was thinking a 10 by 10, about 6 foot tall, maybe 8 foot tall in the front, 6 in the back. That way I have that lean-to roof and all the water will just go off the back. And also possibly have a gutter, have water barrels so they have constant water. So that's kind of my idea. Or I could just do the 5 by 10 dog cage and then build the chicken coop over there in that area to clear that out and have the chicken coop separate over there and have the dog cage here. Or I could go bigger with the dog cage. So what do you think? Is 5 by 10? That should be a decent size for just the dogs. And then a 5 by 10 should be big enough for the chicken. But I just don't know if I should do it in the same building or separate. Or go big and do like a 10 by 10 for the dogs, and then do a 10 by 10 over there for the chickens. I mean, I can pretty much do what I want. I can build it however I want. I mean, I got plenty of lumber out here to make it happen, just like I did the generator shed. I mean, I pretty much built that, you know, in a couple weeks, I guess. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that for now. I need to clean all this up because I know I do want to build it right here. I think that would be real convenient to the new building that we build. So I'm gonna crank up a chainsaw, play with this 32-inch bar on this thing and have some fun. I'll probably bring a smaller chainsaw to cut some, I don't know. I'm gonna crank this thing up and play. See how this thing cuts. cutting. I think I'll bring a smaller saw to cut all that up with. But, oh yeah, now I gotta stack this stuff somewhere. Man. I think we're just gonna get back to cutting, and I'll do some moving and stacking later. Probably gonna be loading some of this stuff in the four-wheeler trailer and moving it to a spot anyway. I need just one big firewood pile somewhere instead of having them everywhere looking crazy. Alright, what else we gonna cut? Dang thing's cutting pretty nice. Usually I'd probably go ahead and sharpen it since it's a new chain. Go ahead and make it match the file, but I think I might cut a little more. Thing's ripping pretty nice. Oh, I ain't even finished cutting up that piece of maple there. I need to cut that a couple more times too. Cut those and then moved on, didn't cut that one. I need to cut that big boy in half too. That's like too dang big to carry. What else? Guess I need to go over there. I got that big oak log that's been over by the garage for a long time. I think I'm gonna go ahead and cut that up too in firewood. Oh yeah. We'll get it cleaned up. Cut some of this pile up so we can move it out of our way here. I know we need to tighten it up some. And got that chain pretty loose. Yeah, maybe I should file it. Might as well if I'm gonna tighten it. All right, let's tighten this thing up. That thing is super loose. Put a little tension on that. Lift it up. A little more. Feels about right. Alrighty. And I think we're going to start with a brand new file since it's a brand new chain. Pull this one out. Oh. Put a new one in there. So we're just surprisingly, that actually matches the file pretty good. We're just gonna give it like, what, 1, 2. I think we'll go about 7, 8. Go about 8 strokes on all of them just to give it a fresh little edge. Oh yeah. Let's make them all fresh. And it'll cut like probably better than it was when we first started. Oh yeah. Pretty. Those two are the same here, so that's where they put the chain together right there. Got 2 of the same. Surprisingly, that factory edge actually matches the file real close. Wow. Oh, that was 9. Anyway, I'm gonna sit here, do that about 100 more times. It says it's 105 drive links. I don't know how many teeth it has on it. Not too sure. Oh, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's probably got about 32 on there, something like that. So this is been my four-wheeler trail here for a long time, and I kind of dropped this oak over here. I was milling it, and I've been kind of wanting to clean up this mess right here because I've been kind of riding around because my trail's been blocked. So I think I'm gonna clean this up, tighten up the chain, put a fresh edge on it. So I'm gonna move some of this stuff around and possibly cut it up all up. I don't know about this beam here. I don't really know what I'm ever gonna use that for, so I think I'm just gonna cut these up. They're pretty weathered, so I think I'm gonna cut them up too. Get some of this out of my trail right here. Went 2 ways. So yeah, I'm gonna cut all this stuff up. This will be some good firewood. I've really been wanting to go around and just cut a bunch of stuff up and start moving some of this wood into piles or a pile somewhere. I just want this a lot cleaner. Here's the view from over here, just all this stuff just laying around everywhere, all this wood and logs, and I'd really like to make this a lot clearer. And then eventually I'm gonna come through here with the leaf blower and just blow a lot of this stuff out, just make it look a lot nicer when you're walking through here, riding through here. Got to clean up around the generator shed over here some, blow all of that out. I want this to look nice. So we cut up all that tree over there, so we'll move all of that, cut a bunch of this stuff up around in here. We'll move all of that and just have kind of piles like that. I would really just like to have one big pile, and then I just throw a big tarp over it to keep it dry. That would be ideal. Then I got a tree laying out there that I need to cut up. That's actually been blocking one of my trails forever, and I've never taken the time to go cut that up. Most everything else looks pretty clear. I do have a tree over here that I need to cut up that I milled. Definitely need to cut this up, but I got this tree top over here also. Need to cut all that up. And once I find a spot and I start doing some loads and stacking it somewhere, that'll be quite a bit of firewood. Not that we're not gonna need too much firewood this summer. Hell, it's 80 degrees today, I think, and I was actually thinking about throwing the tank top on, but it ain't that hot. But let's crank this thing up again. I just gotta move all this stuff somewhere. Man. I used the other saw with the shorter bar to cut up the top of that tree. I don't know if you can tell by looking at this thing, but it's very heavy to lift up and cut branches. Very heavy. So, well, that's about what I wanted to do. I could go back there and cut some of that tree up. But that was pretty much my goal today, is just go around, cut up some of the bigger stuff and play with this chainsaw, this big old 32-inch bar on it, you know. Just mess around and think about how I'm gonna do this cage. Oh, that breeze feels so nice. Feels very nice out today. I'm thinking it's about 80 degrees and that breeze is just icing on the cake. I don't know. I think that's about it, guys, for this. I think I might still go around and cut some stuff up, but I'm not gonna drag the camera with me, and I'm not gonna bring you guys along. But I think I am still gonna mess around, run this thing for a little while, cut some stuff up, and hopefully we'll be getting to this cage, animal shelter cage soon. I don't know, I'm really in between on whether I should do separate ones or make one cool big one. Or two big ones. Because really, I mean, I can build whatever I want. It's just how much do I want to put into it. But they say go big or go home. But I also have to keep in mind that eventually I have to cover these roofs. So, you know, so the bigger I make the buildings and the more of them I make, eventually I got to figure out how I'm going to cover them with legit roofs. Tarps are good for now, but eventually we got to work it out. So, but I can always start with one, have it a dog cage and a chicken coop. That's an idea right there. Go ahead and build the dog cage and the chicken pen in one, and then eventually that one could just become the dog cage once I build another building for a chicken coop. Then I can move the chickens over to the new one. So that's an idea. If I even get chickens this year. I don't even know if I'm gonna get them this year. You know, it might be next spring before I even get chickens. I'm not real sure, but I know I do want to have it made for when I do get them. It could end up being this spring or summer. We'll see what happens. I just got to figure out the plan for this building, and it's not going to take near as much wood as the generator shed, because most of it's going to be like wire fence around it. So, you know. Anyway, if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments. Hope y'all enjoyed me just playing with this saw today. I don't know, I'm just trying to clean up and cut some stuff up and still do YouTube and entertain at the same time. Dang right. Got us a nice pile right here ready. Man, I think I cut up about freaking everything. I actually sharpened the chainsaw again. Came back out, started cutting up more stuff, and I think I pretty much like cut up everything I wanted to cut. I love these log faces, these poplar ones. I don't really use the poplar ones much for siding. All of those are pretty much pine and maple. The poplar ones, I don't know. I don't like the bark on the poplar that gets wet, but finished cutting up that maple there. Cut up all the oak. I do need to come get some of these crazy stumps for sure. I definitely got to go on a stump spree one day. Continued to cut that up more. Got that pile cut down pretty good. That's gonna be some pretty good firewood. Went over here, cut all that up that was hanging out that way, the rest of the tree. Cut all that up. Went over here, finally. I've been talking about cutting this tree forever out of my trail right here. Finally cut this freaking tree up. Man, I've been looking at this tree for so long, like I need to cut that tree and never got to it. And so I finally did it today. Cut all that tree up all the way down. Cut some other pieces. So now I just need to start moving a lot of it to a pile somewhere. And I need to bring the blower. I really want to go ahead and blow this out. Just for the future. But I think we're about to get busy on this animal pen up here. Crate, pen, coop, whatever you want to call it. I think this is the spot right here. I think that's where we're doing it. We might use maybe this maple here as some posts, maybe. Yeah, that'll give this one room to grow out more. So I think we're gonna cut this maple down and use that probably a part of the building. Cut this stump flush here. But I think we're about to have I think we're going 10 by 10 right here. I think we're gonna go big. I don't know, a 5 by 10 just seems silly and long. I think I'd rather do a 10 by 10, have 3 separate cages, whether it's for dogs, chickens, whatever, who knows, we might end up with freaking goats one day. Just never know, right? But yeah, I think I'm just gonna go with a 10 by 10, I think. What do y'all think? I want to know what y'all think too. But this is gonna be exciting. I'm looking forward to having a legit like animal pen, crate, whatever you want to call it. That'll be pretty freaking nice with a roof on it, doors just like pretty much the generator shed. Well, they'll have wire in it instead of wood frame, wire fence in it, hinges, be able to lock it. I think that would be freaking awesome. Oh man, I need another shower now after all that work. I've been sweating my butt off. Freaking spring is here, 80 degrees. Look at this stump, 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 stump. They're everywhere. I gotta go on a freaking stump spree, cutting stumps. And I'm seeing tarps and just stuff everywhere, man. Stuff everywhere. Whew. I'm gonna be working my butt off this summer.